عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وبيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدًا عبد الله ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وأكرم وأنعم على حبيبنا المصطفى محمد ابن عبد الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. قال أعز من قائل بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. My dear brothers and sisters and brothers, أوصيكم وأوصي نفسي بتقوى الله. I advise myself, I affirm within myself, first and foremost, and to all of you, that we embrace and welcome the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the explicit and implicit transformation of our hearts and our behaviors to be what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this week we've been talking about the dunya a bit. You know, what is this world that we have been placed in? What is this life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen for us to live? And how is it that when He looks upon us, what is it that He wants to see from us? And Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, as we've been talking about all this week, he gives a beautiful parable of what this world is in that respect, where he says, this world is like being a guest. And you're a guest of a host who has a certain way of doing things. He likes things in a particular way. And those who know the host, right, know how to act in his presence as his guest. And so the host places before the guest a tray. And that tray has in it maybe some dates, some sweets, right? Some food, some coffee, some tea, maybe something nice to smell, some frankincense, some good stuff, mashallah. And so those who know how the host is, how the owner is, they know their place. So they take a date, right? They take a cup of tea, right? They sit down, they're humble, they're gracious, they're grateful. But Imam al-Ghazali says, but some people are not like that, right? Like they see the tray, they take the whole tray and they keep running, right? There's no grace to them. They're just consuming recklessly with absolute abandon of any ethics or morals or even a pulse. And so here, what Al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, what he's kind of getting at is the finer details of taqwa, the finer details of what it means to be a human being in the first place. Is that someone who knows Allah will know, I'm just a guest of Allah, right? And Allah is giving me all of these gifts and allowing me to feel and taste different aspects of life and reality. And so my job is to be gracious, to accept those gifts graciously, to show my gratitude, and to perfect my manners and my etiquette in how I exist in the world. And so for those who do that, you know, just like when you have a friend that visits you, and you have a beautiful conversation with them, you have a good dinner over coffee, chai, what it may be, you really enjoy their presence. And so you say, hey, why don't you stay over? You know, why don't you stay? You're always welcome. Stay for a few nights. You really like them. Hey, you know, there's this house that was just sold across the street. You should buy it. Hey, you want to keep them. You want to keep them close to you. And this is what Imam al-Ghazali calls Jannah. Right? That when Allah sees you as His beautiful guest, He'll say, I want you over every day. Right? And so the people of Jannah are the people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has befriended. They are the guests who ceased to be guests and became friends and family. And so in this way, our perception of Allah and our perception of ourselves and who we need to be can transform, and we can get a deeper insight into how we live in this world from moment to moment. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Mulk, He mentions of the people of hellfire, where they are now entering into the hellfire. And He says that they say, وَقَالُوا لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ أَوْ نَعْقِلُ مَا كُنَّا مِنْ أَصْحَابِ الْجَحِيمِ. And they will say, if only we had listened, and if only we had used these gifts, this intellect, these emotions, if only we had used our hearing and sight to cultivate gratitude and to cultivate that beautiful presence and to befriend Allah through those gifts, we would not be here today. And so Allah says, فَاعْتَرَفُوا بِذَنْبِهِمْ فَسُحْقًا لِأَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. He says, they acknowledged their shortcomings. They acknowledged their failures in that moment. But it was too late. And so Allah says, فَسُحْقًا لِأَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. Now the linguists, they say this word, sahaq. It's a very interesting word. Because physically, it means to constrict something to the point where it turns to dust, that it turns to nothingness. It is a grinding, a tahana, like one would grind garlic and salt or grains. It is the most severe of humiliation. But the linguists of the Quran, they said sahaq here is actually something far more devastating than that, which is ibti'ad an rahmatihi, to be distanced from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This idea that what is the most devastating outcome of existence in this world is that Allah looks at our hearts and says, I have no interest in taking this person as a friend. That is the single most devastating outcome for a human being. And why do we have to think about this? Why is the Quran full of reminders like this? It's because there is a delusion that exists and attempts to be normalized and seeks to sanitize Allah into a being with no standards or conditions. Everyone, He loves everyone. He cares for everyone. Right? This idea that live however you want. God will accept you. God will have mercy on you. And although it feels nice, religion is not therapy. Let me repeat that again. Religion is not therapy. Religion is not opium. It's not a drug. Before religion can give you sweetness, it has to give you truth. It has to give you truth. And these truths must be stated emphatically and unapologetically. That the Allah that you will meet is an Allah that is going to treat you as you existed in the world. كَمَا تُدِينُ تُدَانُ. As you lived in this world, you will be treated just like that. So if you want to know what the Day of Judgment is going to look like, look no farther than the hell that you give to other people. And look no farther than the heaven that you give to other people. This is the absolute truth. But it's not just be nice, be kind, be good to your neighbor. No. It is a grounding in an absolute understanding that I want Allah to take me as a friend. That I am a guest of Allah. And I want to impress the host. And this kind of neglect of this idea, what it actually leads people to, like when they don't have to worry about pleasing Allah or impressing Allah or befriending Allah, what it leads to is a deep confusion about where else to get that recognition. Where else to get that sense of belonging and love and identity? Because if you're not getting it from Allah, then you become enslaved to the many ways that the people of the dunya get it. So if people don't like the way you look, you change the way you look. People don't like the way you dress, you change the way that you dress. If you see that people don't find your beauty attractive, you get plastic surgeries, you get more money, you get nicer cars, you change your jobs and the ways that you're going to live. Once you opt out of pleasing Allah, then you've given yourself to all the ways in which you now have to please other than Allah. And that is a hamster wheel I do not wish upon anyone. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as my time closes, I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to live with the principle of friendship and to exist with the principle of friendship. And that we absolutely acknowledge that the greatest success we can achieve and the greatest outcome of our lives is friendship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks into each and every one of our hearts and sees appreciation and gratitude and a desire to have connection and to have His presence with us. وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We praise Allah, we thank Allah. We send peace and blessings upon our beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon his beautiful family and his noble companions. I want to end with this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, towards the end of Surah Al-Mulk, He makes a statement about truth, right? That we said that religion has to deliver truth before it can deliver therapy and sweetness. And He says, أَفَمَنْ يَمْشِي مُكِبًّا عَلَى وَجْهِهِ أَهْدَى أَمَّنْ يَمْشِي سَوِيًّا عَلَى صِرَاطٍ المستقيم. He says, imagine seeing someone walking and their back is bent and they're looking at the ground, as in they walk like this. He says, is that more guided than someone you see walking, right, with their shoulders out, their chest out, with a nice strong walk? He said, can the two be compared, right? Someone who clearly has some type of physical issue. You see, in this postmodern world that we live in, people will try to equalize them somehow. Right? They'll use all type of excuses and narratives and whatever you can to somehow obscure the fact that walking upright is clearly better than the alternative. And so Allah makes these kind of objective statements of truth because He wants to empower us to also speak and live in a principled way. And to understand that when we fail to be principled, right, it's like we're walking crooked rather than the straight and the narrow. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, to give us this beautiful akhlaq that we've been talking about in the first half of the khutbah. But at the same time, we have to pair that with that strong principle. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for afiyah. We ask Allah to give us strength in our iman, to give us strength in our health. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give healing and aid to our brothers and sisters who are oppressed deeply in Gaza. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be with them, to give them presence, to accept our shuhada from amongst them, Ya Rabbil Alameen. We ask you for every single Muslim who has a need. Ya Allah, we ask you to give them relief. We ask you to fulfill their need. We ask you to heal their hearts, to remove their sorrows and their grief. Ya Rabbil Alameen, we ask you for a type of yaqeen, a type of certainty that makes easy for us to endure the trials of the dunya. Ya Allah, we ask you for a friendship with you that makes it easy for us to have the stamina and endurance to make it to the highest of your gardens. Ya Rabbil Alameen, we ask you, tawaffana musliman. Take us in a state of submission and allow us to join the righteous. Wa alhiqna bis-salihin. Ya Allah, in your relief, in your mercy, we seek relief. In your help, we seek victory. In your gift, we seek our rizq, we seek our sustenance. In your Quran and in your Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we seek absolute guidance and truth. وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وأقم الصلاة